Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to KGTR here at the Headbangers Hideout. Today's featured guitar magazine review is the April 1984 issue of Guitar for the Practicing Musician. This features the legendary Neal Schon and Sammy Hagar. Look at that beautiful cover. All right, we're going to go over this magazine page by page. We're going to look at the gear, look at the bands, artists that they're covering, glance over the interviews or any sheet music there. And again, if there's any particular interview from any of these magazines that we're reviewing that you would like me to post in a separate interview, and you want me to go ahead and read them aloud to you, I'll be happy to do that. So in other words, if there's a particular interview with Eddie Van Halen or George Lynch or Sammy Hagar, hey, I want to know what that interview was about, and you can't find it, or you don't want to go out and buy the magazine per se, I'll be happy to post screenshot the interview, and we can read it, the interview together, and we can talk about it. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. And again, any questions, comments, or feedback, leave them below. Thanks for joining me. I'm Tony, and let's get to it. This is Guitar for the Practicing Musician. We're now into April of 1984. This issue has Neal Schon and Sammy Hagar. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, lockbox. Look at the red Nikes. Look, back then, remember what we were talking about in other videos? They're putting bandanas on their ankles, on their wrists, on their arms. Like guitar players did that. They would dangle them here on the headstocks right here. They would put them on their necks, kind of like cowboy western. They would dangle it. Even Akira Takasaki had the bandanas here. George Lynch had it. Vivian Campbell had it. Everybody had bandanas. It was the thing for to accessorize. Here's Neal Schon with the fishnet type of, almost like the football practice jerseys, the fishnet. Obviously it's fishnet, you cut it up, or someone cut it up. And I don't know what kind of guitar this is, but this is a pretty good guitar. I can't see the name here. Maybe it's Epiphone or Gibson. So it could be a Gibson Epiphone right here. And this is a Gibson. Okay, I think they're both Gibson guitars. So yeah, these are Gibsons. So maybe they'll show the pictures in here. All right. This issue has Black Sabbath, Duran Duran, Brian May and Friends, with sheet music by Paranoid, Walk This Way, Stepping Out, Eric Clapton, Your Love Is Driving Me Crazy, with bass lines, Aerosmith, John McLaughlin, and Was Not Was. All right, let's go ahead and open her up. This has about 100 pages. Again, when we get to the sheet music, before you ask me to share the music with you, just Google it. And I'm sure you can find the sheet music or tabs on Google, or just go to YouTube and type up the song. And I'm sure there's great guitar players out there doing covers or giving you guitar lessons. All right, as we open her up, here's a new ad. No more, notice that? We have no more, I don't even know. So far, there's no G&L guitar. There's no G&L guitar advertisement. This is for the Shenandoah, the Martin Guitar Company. I'm sure this is a very nice guitar. I like acoustics, but I just think they're too chunky. I don't like chunky guitars. I like thin guitars. I like thin acoustic guitars, thin classical guitars. I don't like the chunkiness. Maybe they sound better when they're chunky. I just don't like chunky guitars. And I don't like steel strings. I don't mind electric guitar strings, but acoustic steel strings, I don't care for them. But Martins are one of the best guitar makers out there. So here's the Martin Shenandoah. So 1984, they're showcasing the Martin Shenandoah guitar. Let me know if you've heard of this guitar. If you have it, if you have Martins, let me know. I know they're really high quality. I'm not knocking the Martin. I know they sound great and they play great. I just don't like chunky guitars. But, I spoke too soon. Remember? This is now the 6th or 7th magazine edition with Guitar for the Practicing Musician. Here again, G&L sales is showcasing the Cavalier. Why don't they have other models? Why don't they show their line? Other colors, other styles, basses or something. I know they have Strat styles and Telecaster styles, but they're really pushing this particular brand, this model, this color, and all these issues. They should have had, a whole bunch of guitars dangling over here, or put a model with a different model. But anyways, here it is again, the Cavalier by G&L. See, now I'm already sick of this. This is 2025, and I'm already sick of the G&L Cavalier. Let me know your thoughts on this guitar. You like this guitar? Would you play it? Would you buy it? This headstock right here is a big turnoff. Look, it goes like, it's all round, dip, point, and then, see the cursor? It goes around, dip, point, dip, slope, around, boom. That's too chunky. So this is ugly right here. This is ugly. Make it like a Strat style, and then I could maybe, you know, if the headstock's ugly, it makes this ugly. That's why I don't like it. So there's that. All right, so again, here's the department contacts. You know, I can't read that because it's all in pink, but you get the gist. Again, we're just going through this magazine to give you an idea of what this magazine had, because a lot of you guys out there are curious to see what these old magazines were about. Maybe you had these and you want to reminisce, or you're just curious to see what was happening back in the era. All right, so again, we already covered this. This is the PV, what's that say? I read it before last time. It's a mixer. This is a mini mixer. All right, so here's John Lennon. Wonderful picture of John Lennon. Died in 1981, 80 or 81. And here he is in 1984, and they're promoting him. All right, look at this. Rick Emmett. This guitar, this is like his main guitar. Rick Emmett is a shredder. Again, very popular in the 70s and early 80s. Lay It on the Line. Triumph was good. They deserve their spot in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think so. They're up there. I will put them up there with Rush, with Kiss. Well, I'm talking about the hits wise. They're good. Triumph is good. You listen to their earlier, like their first three albums. They're good. Their first three albums, I think, are better than Kiss's first three albums. Put it that way. I like Triumph's first three albums over Kiss's first three albums. Obviously, Kiss Alive opened the doors, but the first three albums kind of sucked. That's why I took that live albums for them to blow up. But Triumph is good. Type in Triumph on YouTube, you'll love it. All right, look, here's Hall & Oates. Remember T-Bone Walk? He's the bass player for Hall & Oates. But Hall & Oates was big. They punched out hit after hit after hit in the 80s. And they were all over MTV. So you can't knock Hall & Oates because they had very catchy hooks, very catchy tunes, and they were good. They were good. All right, look at Kiss. This is Kiss now in 1984 without their makeup. Here you got Vinnie Vincent, Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, and Eric Carr. Trying to basically now saying we have to compete with the 80s heavy metal scene because bands were coming up and the makeup now was gimmicky and it was too much for kid stuff. So here we go. Kiss was trying to make a name for it. All right, so here's some sheet music for Kiss. Look it up. We're going to blow right by that because, again, everything is found on YouTube or Google. And play it like it is. And then we have sheet music that lets you play like a pro, even if you don't read music. Then we have letters to the editor, guitar, play guitar with the stars. And then we have more letters to the editor. And then we have open ears. So here's another band rehearsal part 2 by Steve Morse, another article by Steve Morse. And we, again, get bookend. The latest sheet music and musical books. Here's The Police. We got Duran Duran, we got AC/DC, Black Sabbath, we got Queen. So these books are good. All right, David Was on the Radio by Peter Gordon. So here they're talking about David Was on the Radio. So there we go. Or In the Listening Room. So with John McLaughlin. So John McLaughlin's basically telling you what he's listening to. Guitar Questions with Barry Littman. If you have any questions for Barry Littman, he's going to answer them. All right, Guitar Secrets with Rick Derringer, regular contributor with Guitar from the Practice New Musician. Rick Derringer was a great guitar player in the 70s, so check him out. Remember the last issue? He was talking about the pull-off. Here he's talking about the hammer-on. So he's going to basically give you a guide on how to handle and tackle the hammer-ons. All right, remember T-Bone Walker? He's a bass player for Hall & Oates. This is based in the 80s, and he's playing you the bass line for Come On, Feel the Noise. So again, you want to learn this? I'm sure you can find the sheet music on Google. Right, next month on the radio, Eagles guitar player Don Felder. And look at this, Eric. So they're showing you Rudy Sarzo, and Carlos Cavazos. But this is still with the, this pertains to the bass line, Come On Feel the Noise. Hence, that's why you see this picture. But they're telling you right here, next month on the radio, Eagles guitarist with Don Felder. All right, so here we go. Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. So if you want me to cover what was in this issue with Steven Tyler, I'll be happy to upload just the segment of Steven Tyler. Again, I'll be more than happy to any particular artist upload just that segment so that you can get a grasp of what they were talking about or what the interview was about. And I'd be happy to do that. No problem. But let me know. Otherwise, we're just going to continue doing this. Right, professional reverb at an affordable price. So here is the Master Room XL 121. This is all reverb. So if you want more reverb, there you go. All right, Walk This Way by Aerosmith. We're going to go real quickly on the sheet music. You don't need to be bored by that. But if you want to learn Walk This Way, just go to YouTube or Google it. Remember, this is before the internet, so this was a gold mine. If you got these sheet musics and this guitar magazine, it was free music. It was free, right? More in the article with the performance notes. There's Eric Clapton right there. And Paranoid, Black Sabbath. You want to look, see tablature explanation, 95. So here we go. These are the chords for Paranoid. And if you want to learn how to read tabs, it'll give you like a little brief synopsis on how to read that. Let's go by this quickly. We don't need to get into the tabs. All right, look, Black Sabbath. Still Paranoid after all these years. So this is Black Sabbath now without Ozzy Osbourne. And I think Dio was already with Dio. So I don't know who the singer was back then in 84. But Dio was already solo with Dio. And Ozzy was doing Ozzy. So here's Black Sabbath still chugging away. And so remember, they were real popular in the 70s. But they were still relevant in the 80s. There's Geezer Butler on bass. And here's more of the article on Black Sabbath. Again, you want me to go over this? I'll be more than happy to just devote a video on the interview with Black Sabbath. That'd be cool too. So if you want to say, hey, interview with Black Sabbath 1984, we'll just talk about it and we'll be happy to do that. So again, more interview on Black Sabbath. I think it'd be fun if you're interested. Just let me know. Again, another advertisement for this guitar for the practicing musician. This guitar gives you more. Gives you all the articles, letters to the editor, from the editor, guitar lessons, sheet music and whatnot, tabs. So, super sessions. So, Brian May and Friends was very popular with Brian May. I had that album somewhere. There was a video out there, but Eddie Van Halen joined Brian May and they did a couple of releases together. I think if you typed in Brian May and Eddie Van Halen on YouTube, you can find those tracks online. Not many people discussed it because everyone just thinks about Eddie Van Halen, and Sammy Hagar era and David Lee Roth era. But or that album, Big Life, or whatever that movie was called back in 1984, something like that, Wild Party or something like that. Yeah, the Wildlife, I think it was. But you also look up Brian May and Eddie Van Halen, and you'll see some tracks that are rare. Because people don't talk about it, and people don't even know about it, or people aren't learning about it. But there's some great guitar playing with Eddie Van Halen and Brian May. So just look that up. So, and I haven't seen anyone playing any lessons either of Brian May and Eddie Van Halen. But there's some good guitar licks and soloing with Brian May and Eddie Van Halen. Right, corporate. So at some point, these two play together, Sammy Hagar and Neal Schon. So if you want me to look at the attire back in 1984. Look at this beautiful guitar right here. If you want me to go over this interview with Sammy Hagar and Neal Schon, I'd be more than happy to devote a quick 10-minute video on the interview where we can discuss about it. Again, here's Brian May and Friends talking about Eddie Van Halen right here. I know he is because look. Generally, when I see Eddie after not having seen him for a while, my first reaction is that I don't want to play anymore. See? So here's Brian May already talking about Eddie Van Halen. Here's Blowing Doors back in 1984. So if you want me to go into detail with this interview, let me know. So here's Sammy Hagar with Neal Schon. That's going to be talking about these guys. Again, Sammy Hagar wasn't with Van Halen yet. Interesting. So, and here's Neal Schon with Sammy Hagar. And this guy can shred too. So, And here's Brian May and friends. He's talking about Eddie Van Halen. So you want me to talk about, you want to learn what he was saying with Eddie? I'll be more than happy to post it. And look, see, I told you. There's Eddie Van Halen playing the bass. I'm sure there's a video out there somewhere. And someone, maybe it's private. But these guys jammed a couple times. So again here, I'm sure he's talking about Eddie Van Halen. And I don't want to like squint my eyes, but I will be happy to devote a video of Brian May and friends if you guys want. All right, stepping out with Eric Clapton. Let's get out of here. You're all telling you're going so fast. Again, all this sheet music, I guarantee you can find on YouTube or on Google. Again, so this is When Queen. So this is again talking about Brian May and friends. He'll be talking about Eddie Van Halen. Your Love Is Driving Me Crazy by Sammy Hagar. That's a very popular hit back in 1984. Again, we'll go by this. And again, pretty much everything is on YouTube. Songs, tutorials, lessons. And on Google, you can probably find sheet music and tabs. Right. This ad thinks it's a bookstore. All right. Rock Read. If you want to read about your favorite guitar or bands back then, there you go. All right. So here's more on Neal Schon and Sammy Hagar. So I'm sure they're probably going to talk about how they formed, how they got together, and what their future plans are. So maybe many of you don't know that these guys play together. Maybe they have a release out. Maybe there's some demos out there on YouTube. So type in Sammy Hagar and Neal Schon. You may find some good stuff on YouTube. So there we go. All right, Song Wars. Remember, 2 issues ago, there was Guitar Wars. We went over it. Last issue, there was Bass Wars. Now these are Song Wars. So this is round 1 of the bracket. And they want you to rate the best songs. Who would win? That's what MTV was doing. They were having Battle of the Bands for the Heavy Metal Hour. They'll put on Def Leppard versus Quiet Riot. And whoever you voted for would move on to the next weeks. And then they'll pair them up with Van Halen or whatever. And here we got Jumping Jack Flash versus Whipping Post. I never heard of Whipping Post. Stairway to Heaven versus Hit Me With Your Best Shot. Well, I like Pat Benatar, but I guess Stairway to Heaven would win. Rosanna versus Spirit of Radio. Crazy Train versus Hotel California. God, who do you choose? Johnny B. Good versus Soul Man. Aqualung versus Suffragette City. Roxanne versus Rosalita. Light My Fire versus Truckin'. Photograph versus Trooper. See, Photograph by Def Leppard. Won't Get Fooled Again and Another Brick in the Wall. These are great songs and they're Song Wars. You pick who see who wins. Come On, Feel the Noise. Smoke on the Water. Purple Haze versus Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Don't Stop Believing versus Black Magic Woman. Bohemian Rhapsody versus Roundabout. Oh, that'd be a great. They're both. Layla versus More Than a Feeling. This is great. These Song Wars. Who do you pick, Layla or More Than a Feeling? And then we got the Cradle Will Rock by Van Halen versus Crossroads by Eric Clapton. So again, back then you would put your name and address, your age, mail it in, and whoever got the most votes. I think this may come out in a later issue who the winners were. But these were Song Wars. This is pretty fun back then. All right, remember last issue with new products? So here they're showing you the amplifier. Gibson has announced the introduction of the new Genesis series. So I didn't know they had an amplifier Genesis. So Gibson had an amplifier called the Genesis back in 1984. This acoustic guitar is priced at $500. And this amp right here is 40 watts. And this is $500. Here's a practice amp, a Gibson amp, Genesis, for $500, 40 watts. Pretty powerful back then for a practice amp. All right, look at this. Microphone bracket, replacement bridge right here. And then we have effects, the MXR Junior. So I didn't know about MXR Juniors. I just knew about the general MXRs. And here's some cleaning stuff right there. All right, what else? All right, the vinyl score. They're going after the Rolling Stones Undercover. Bark at the Moon. Midnight Madness by Night Ranger. I love Night Ranger. No Parole from Rock and Roll by Alcatraz. Oh, 1984 was a great year for metal, see? Vices by Wasted. And 90125 by Yes. Play Dirty by Girl School. and Cut Loose by Paul Rogers. What else? The Planet Earth Rock and Roll Orchestra by Paul Cantor. Never heard of that, even in 1984. All right, on video, these were telling you by Bruce Pollack. He's letting you know what's on video. Most charismatic presence in video. Best use of symbolism, and on and on. All right, on another note by Alan Siegel. So again, more columns and articles. Here's again the continuation of the Black Sabbath article. So if you're interested in what Black Sabbath was up to back in 1984, I'll be happy to upload that and we'll discuss it. Paranoid, here are the tabs, or the bass lines rather. Let's blow through this. All right, on the case. So here we go. The Ibanez Musician Bass MC 924. So this is the Ibanez bass. And then here's another bass guitar. This bass guitar, they gave it a 2. This bass guitar by Ibanez, they gave it a 5. Alright, plug it in, Elliot Randall. Music Man. This amp is a Music Man. Got 4 stars. I always wanted this amp. I remember this amp. The Randall RG80. Because Randall had some crunch. I love the distortion. And I always thought about Randy Rhoads. George Lynch. When I first saw George Lynch, I saw George Lynch before Tooth and Nail. So I saw George Lynch with Dawkins in support of their Breaking the Chains tour. So this was late 83, early 84. And he was playing with Randalls. Not Marshalls, but he was playing with the Randalls. And he sounded incredible. And when I saw him with Dawkins opening up for Dio, he was still playing with Randalls. Or I think he was playing with Vivian Campbell's rig. I think I heard somewhere where his rig got stolen or malfunctioned, and Vivian Campbell lent him his amps. And so, because they were playing the same bill. So I think George Lynch was playing through Vivian Campbell's stuff. I think, or Warren DeMartini. I don't know. But long story short, at some point, yeah, Warren DeMartini with Rat was playing with Laney, and George Lynch was playing with Randall. And they both sounded incredible. But I remember this amp. I always wanted this amp. I thought I would sound like George Lynch. All right. Scholl's guitar giveaway. So they're giving away the Rockman. The Rockman Model 2B. So they're giving it away. Again, put your name, phone number, address here, mail it in, and you may win a Rockman. Okay, we're almost done here. Back issues. You want to get back issues? Go ahead and submit it. What else? All right. So again, this is not a heavy metal magazine. They're featuring Duran Duran. Excuse this cutout right here, but to scan the pages, I had to do one by one, just because of the scanner. And there's the other side. So look, this was a full poster when you opened it up, but there it is. So see, look, this is before the makeup phase, but they started wearing a lot of makeup. All right, so here's a nice article here on Duran Duran if you're interested. See the makeup here? That wasn't gay. You just wore makeup. That's all. But I love the makeup. I love it when they wear makeup. Okay, so all that sheet music. Oh, I want to learn tabs. I want to learn how to read music. You would look at this, and it would tell you how to read music. But I had no patience for it. I'm like, I buy the record, buy the cassette tape, and like most guitar players, stop, play, rewind, and that's how you learn. And again, this is right before the end cover. So coming next month, they're going to talk about Eddie Van Halen and John Entwistle with the Who. So here's Eddie Van Halen coming into the next issue, and here is John Entwistle. All right. And lastly, here is the back cover of the issue that we just went over for April of 1994. So there is the April 1984 issue of Guitar for the Practicing Musician. I totally forgot that Neal Schon played with Sammy Hagar. So let me know your thoughts. Do you remember them playing together? Do you remember any hits or any videos of these guys playing together? I would suggest you go to YouTube after this video and type in Sammy Hagar, Neal Schon. And I'm sure there's probably some songs with them or videos of these two together. I just totally forgot about them. But here they are. So at some point, these two played together and recorded some music together. So this was the music scene back in 1984. Let me know, do you have this issue? Do you remember this issue? And if there's any interview from this magazine that you would like me to discuss and go over, we can go ahead and read the interview together, and then we can discuss about it. So I'd be happy to do that. So if the interview Eddie Van Halen, and I'm going by it really fast, Tony, I want to read the Eddie Van Halen interview. I'll make a quick 10-minute video of the interview. All right, I'm Tony. Thanks for joining me here on another vintage magazine run. And that was the April 1984. I'm not going in any particular order. I may surprise you with other issues, other magazines. But right now, I just happen to be in April of 1984. Any questions, comments, or feedback, leave them below. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you all in the next video.